Joining us now is Howard Lutnick, Chairman and CEO of BGC, also Chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald. And let's talk about performance for a second here. BGC, you looked at equities, it was down. Every other business really was on the rise. What was driving performance, and where are you going to be making most of your money from this year?
So BGC, for years, was in the market where there was zero interest rates. And so people sort of forgot about us. We're the world's most valuable wholesaler. So everything in the world that you guys talk about and trade, we're the wholesale market. Like, who does Goldman Sachs trade? Who does JP Morgan call when they want to do their trades? They call BGC. We're the wholesaler. So with interest rates back, our stock was up 90% last year, up 30% this year so far. And our business is on fire. Revenue's up 11.7%, profits up 19.2%. And the most exciting thing, we're launching in September, pretty soon, a competitor to the awesome monopoly, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They do 100% of futures in America. And now FMX, which is run by the largest wholesaler in the world, we brought in some partners, 10 of the largest banks and trading firms in the world, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citadel, you name the list, they're all on the list. In September, we bring competition, so I think our stock's going to be fire. Obviously, we're going to try to do a 90% again.
Right.
We got some work to do in the last bunch of months.
Let's talk about that competition because, of course, Terry Duffy of CME has had some words for you both on his earnings call and in the media. And it was actually the first question on your earnings call. Basically, Terry Duffy criticizing you clearing trades through LCH when it comes specifically to treasuries. We know that we've reported that you've struck a deal with LCH rather to basically cross margin with treasuries. Do you foresee any issues there?
No, that's what I found so fascinating. You've got the CEO of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange worth $70 billion, right? With a monopoly, the only exchange doing futures. Now, here we come with our competition, and we are just in his head. Oh my gosh, for him to talk, he said nasty things about me. I mean, imagine saying nasty things about the guy who's going to compete with you.
Well, he says he's not going to sit by and watch you take share. At the end of the day, I think Katie and I are both wondering, have you talked to him
Well, what's he
about
going to
this?
do? Do a dance while I take share? I mean, look, he's got 100% market share. There's no chance we don't take share, and we're going to take serious share because we've got partners of all the big banks, all the big trading firms are our partner. So LCH clears interest rate swaps, right? So dollar-based interest rate swaps. SOFR futures are really a future for swaps. So if you can do both things together, it's really efficient, right? Because you're just basically, it's like stock futures, which you talk about, and stocks, right? They're a good hedge for each other. That's what interest rate swaps and swap futures or SOFR futures are. So we will have amazing cross-margining opportunities, and therefore we're going to bring this competition. And investors have not really understood how exciting that is within BGC's stock. So I think what will happen is we're going to launch in September. We're going to come out strong, but it's a marathon. This is not a sprint. And you know that.
How much volume could you do in year one?
Well, I think year one we're going to do, our goal is to have the world record open interest, meaning trades that are sort of parked at our exchange, where investors are sticking it out with us. They're not just coming and going, they're staying. We expect at the end of the first year, we will have the record for the most open interest ever for a new exchange. And that will bode incredibly well. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That's the ribbon we're going to cut. The most open interest ever for an exchange.
Well, we have that on record, so we'll have to check in with you on that after
I'm good with that.
one. But you mentioned the stock. I want to talk about the stock because I was checking. It's up 89% over the past year. But you pointed out in the earnings call that you only trade at 10 times earnings, and you cited that as a reason why you're buying back the stock. What do you think is a more reasonable valuation?
So we're a member of the S&P 600, which is sort of like the mid-cap stocks. We're not, unfortunately, we've got a long way to go to catch NVIDIA, you know? It's
yeah,
sort of
that's
the
true.
3 trillion sort of world. But so, you know, our stock is 11% revenue growth, 10% for the year, right? Just had 11 this quarter, and 19% profit growth. If you compare that to other S&P 600 stocks, they trade at 25 to 30 times. And we're trading at 10 times. And you say, okay, other stocks in the S&P 600. And I'd say, well, those that trade 10 times earnings, have zero revenue growth. So I'm trading like a zero revenue growth company when we're really 11% top line revenue. And the reason for that is because all those years of zero interest rates, people sort of forgot what a great company we are. You know, I used to describe us like Gillette. You know, every morning, all the men in the earth wake up with a beard, and some of them need to shave. Not me so much, but some need to shave. Bonds always, there's just going to be more issued. If you're in the bond business, I promise you next year, there'll just be more to trade. Good business for you as well.
Speaking of trading, you were bang on when it came to kind of seeing the direction of interest rate cuts this year. You never really thought we were going to get 5 or 6. You said September was when you would see one. Now the market is aligned with what you had said many months ago.
How about that, right? I said it in December. Now the whole world believes they're not going to cut today and they're going to cut September. So they basically were saying, yeah,
what about next year? What about next year? You think about the pace of cuts moving past September, the election coming up. A lot of people are thinking about what it would mean for Trump versus Kamala Harris to take the office, whether those tariff policies will be inflationary going into next year. How much room will there really be to cut rates going into 2025?
I think both candidates, would like to cut rates. So that's good for the bond business, right? When you have everybody running, you have 100% coverage of people in politics want to cut rates, right? So I think we get a September cut. I think that's in the cards for sure. And you saw Germany had negative growth. I mean, negative growth from such a big economy like that is going to drive all the central bankers who are now looking to cut. All right, so it's really, that's sort of the word out there now, cut. So September, I think the market's building in a 100% probability of a cut now. How about that? That's a good percentage, 100%, sort of it. I think there'll be some cuts next year, but you have to remember, zero is just not a thing. Okay, it was a manufactured thing to get us out of the great financial crisis, right? So it's just, and the pandemic, it's just not a thing. So I think a couple of cuts, maybe, in the mid-4s is a reasonable rate for us to live and breathe in. So I think 2 or 3 cuts next year. I'd say 2 cuts next year, 1 in September. And that's the whole thing. It's not, unfortunately, it's not that exciting. It's not 7 cuts and then 7 hikes and then
all the way back
cuts.
to zero. It's just not happening.
Yeah, no chance. Zero chance. We have a good economy. We have good interest rates. For the Fed, it's their tool, right? If they, at zero, what tool do you have? Right? You can't, what did they do? Quantitative easing. You're like, how is that even on the menu? What, they buy all the bonds of America? But you have to remember, as the Fed runs off its balance sheet, okay, that means I'm not buying bonds, you are. That's tightening. It's like, it's cutting, it's cutting off your credit card for the economy.
So, if you think about the path forward here, a lot of people are waiting for stability in the markets to finally see more IPOs. Cantor Fitzgerald, big underwriter in the IPO market. What's your expectation for the year ahead? And do you see bigger or smaller companies really coming to fruition here? It's really a market that is hoping for that small cap rebound.
So Cantor's in a really good place. I mean, we're 3rd so far this year, and it's, we're going on, going into August. So we're in a really good spot. Cantor's got a great healthcare franchise. Now, we don't do the big giant companies. We do the smaller companies where we focus on raising them for phase 2 and phase 3 drugs. Sort of one of my favorite days of the year is our healthcare conference, because we're not sort of pumping up big companies. This is where all of the new developments in biotech and biopharma present themselves. And it's so fun to see the things that are happening, and we're helping them raise money. So our IPO business is very successful. I think the market 2025, you're going to see the IPO market open, and you're going to be talking about companies. And on this show all day, you're just going to have fire talking about, because there's so much pent up demand. So many companies want to go, right? And as the market starts to crack, which we're feeling now, right? They're going to start coming. You're going to start seeing 3 a week, then you're going to start seeing 4 a week, and next year, by the middle of next year, 5 a week. They're going to be coming hot and heavy, and you guys are going to be awful busy on this show.
Well, I know that you're hosting a dinner on August 2nd, basically asking attendees to pay $25,000 to attend, and even more so if they want, of course, a photo.
It's going to be a great
Donald
chicken.
Trump.
It'll be really great chicken for
really
$25.
Good, not rubber. But how much are you looking to raise here? Are you trying to set any sort of record here when it comes to fundraising?
I think we'll raise over $10 million for the evening. And I mean, what an honor to have President Trump come over the House. We've got really a great crowd will come. I'll probably keep it to 100 people, so because I don't want it to be too big. And it's really, he gets to talk, he gets to meet, and he hosts a round table. So the biggest donors who pay $250,000 sit at a dining room table and spend a half hour just asking him questions and talking. And he needs money, right? It's a race now. It's a hot race now. And Donald Trump needs the fundraising, and I'm trying to help everywhere I can.
To that end, you actually donated to the 2016 Senate campaign for Kamala Harris. How do you think her entrance into this race changes the game?
Well, putting on me what my wife does is not really fair. So my wife,
it's an interesting
that's
dinner
a balance.
conversation.
There's a good balance.
Yeah.
In every marriage, there's a good balance. But my wife actually has moved over to Donald Trump, which is unusual for her because she says Israel is her number one, policy, her number one issue, and she knows that Donald Trump literally sat down with my wife and told her, I will be the best president for Israel. I will protect Israel and take care of them. So, even in my house, we have unanimity around Donald Trump.
And of course, you have big plans at Cantor Fitzgerald with FMX as well. But if Donald Trump were to win, are you angling for a spot in the administration? Would you serve?
The rules are if the president asks you to serve, you kind of have to say yes. I'd rather help him with transition. I'd rather help make sure they put great people in the administration. I mean, that's the most important thing is you have the people around you are smart and capable. So I'm going to offer to help him there. But if he asks, you got to do what the president asks you to do. I'm in love with running Cantor Fitzgerald and BGC, though. I just want to be crystal clear.
Right.
I love what I do.
I want a little story time. How did your relationship with Donald Trump develop? And how did you become such kind of a critical part of this fundraising effort?
Well, I've known him for 30 years. I mean, when you're in New York, I've known him for 30 years. If you go back and look at the first season of Celebrity Apprentice, I was a guest appearance. Right? So, I mean, I've known him a long time. This isn't like politics, right? I've known him a long time. He's extraordinary. I went with him to a Minnesota rally, okay? And, I didn't know what to expect. I've never been to a rally with him. It's like going to Mick Jagger to a rock concert. They're lining the streets, thousands of people lining the streets, 15,000 people in the arena, and 25,000 outside watching on a Jumbotron. And you just can't understand what that feels like. And then when you see it, you're like, holy moly. So they let me introduce J.D. Vance. So I walked out in this rally, right? And they're cheering. It was a rock concert. I felt like a guy like me doesn't usually feel like a rock concert sort of guy. But
Howard, do you worry about some of the comments that J.D. Vance has been making lately about childless women and what it could mean for Trump's campaign?
I think the vice president quickly moves to behind the president. Lots of things people talk about. They try to make the vice president something, but the vice president's job is to strongly support the president of the United States. That's their job. Right?
So are you not then concerned about the speech he gave at the RNC, for example, which was very anti-Wall Street?
Well, I think he wants to bring, he wants the common people, right, the people on his neighborhood where he grew up to feel that they've got a voice in the White House, which I think is really important, right? And I think it will resonate with the people on Main Street. But the fact is, the only policy that's going to matter is by the President of the United States for both parties. Whoever they pick is a good running mate, is a smart person. They're a heartbeat away from the Oval Office, as we know. But, and Kamala was closer than most people.
That's true.
What's the Trump trade, in your view, as somebody who knows him?
I think the Trump trade is a broadening of the base, right? So what we've seen is this rally has been the Magnificent Seven, right? He's going to cut corporate taxes, which is a broad-based move. He's going to cut regulation, which is a broad-based move, and he's probably going to put on tariffs on China, which isn't good for the Magnificent Seven. So I think what you've got is a constraining of the Magnificent Seven and a pounding up of the rest of the market. So I think if you were going to do a trade, it would be long the broad base, right, against the Magnificent Seven, which is sort of the opposite of what we felt for the past year.
So Howard, somehow we only have a minute left with you. You were with Donald Trump in Minnesota. You were also with him in Nashville at that Bitcoin conference where you announced that Cantor Fitzgerald announced a new multi-billion-dollar effort in Bitcoin financing. Can you give us any details on what the potential timeline for that is?
Sure. So, securities markets, everybody finances securities, and nobody finances Bitcoin. Bitcoin market cap is over $1.3 trillion. So we've figured out how to do it, how to custodian it. We'll work with other custodians, but they're going to have to work with us because we have to control the Bitcoin. Can't let it get hacked. And we're going to start lending on Bitcoin. We're going to start with $2 billion of loans, and then we're going to go up in increments of $2 billion. So it'll be a huge business because it's a huge asset. And it's only Bitcoin. We're only focused on Bitcoin. But Cantor Fitzgerald will be financing Bitcoin. And I think it's a fun business. And it's a big asset class.
Right.
But it's more like a commodity. People talk about it like it's a currency.
Right.
You can't buy bread with something that goes up and down. So I think of it as a commodity.
Howard, I got a producer in my ear. We have to have you back very soon, maybe in September. Our thanks, of course, to Howard Lutnick. He is chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald.